Hello. In a recent class project, we looked at the two issues of growth of national income and income inequality. And I just wanted to discuss that a little bit more and maybe give you some hints to the answers that we could come up with. So first of all, I want you to remember the table that we had. So this is the table that we had in that class project. And we're thinking about an economy that has 10 people, so there are 10 groups or 10 individuals. Of course, each individual could represent more than one person, like a million or maybe 10 million people. But let's just think of one person right now. And each of these 10 people earn this much money each. So, for example, the 10th person, the richest person, earns $34, and the poorest person earns only $1. And then we can calculate the share of total income that goes to each of these people. What we want to do, however, is to break it up into quintiles or fifths. So what we had here is that the bottom 20%, so 20%, so here's I'm going to write 20 here, if I can, 20%. So the bottom 20% earned 3% out of total income. So if we add up the shares, that's going to make, of course, 100%. But the bottom, the poorest 20% got 3% of total income. In this case, because total income was 100, we know that they got $3. Whereas the richest 20%, they get 52% of the total income, which is also equal to $52. But that might not be true always, because the total income, actual income, does not have to add up to 100. It could add up to anything. Anyway, so we have these quintiles, and if we want to ask the first question, which is, what is the growth of national income if each quintile grows by 10%? Well, that's pretty straightforward, because the growth of national income is going to be the weighted average of the growth of each of the 5 groups, the 20% groups. So what we would have to do is just figure out how we're going to weigh each group. Well, it turns out that the proper weighing is to use the share of total income. So whatever their share is, that's going to be the weight that they have to contribute to total income. So if I write an expression for total income, what we're going to have here then is that the growth rate of national income is going to be equal to the weighted average of the growth of the bottom 20% plus the weighted growth rate of the second 20% plus the third quintile, the fourth quintile, and the richest 20%. That's a big one. It's counted as 52%, or the 0.52 as a share. Clearly you can see, or you can try it yourself, that if each growth rate is equal to 10%, and that's true for all of the growth rates, then the weighted average will have to be 10% as well. So if you just plug in either 10 or 0.1, you can see that the answer will be that the growth rate of national income will be 10% as well. All right, so that's fine. That's pretty straightforward. But what if the country doesn't have enough resources to make sure that every quintile, every 20% group can grow by 10%, right? So they have to allocate the resources to, say, build certain factories in certain industries, or spending money on certain areas or geography or locations and all kinds of things like that. And so they cannot grow it exactly equally everywhere. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to erase a couple things first. So we're going to just do one problem just to get a sense for how this would actually work. So So here we still have the same equation, but then let's look at this one. Oops, get rid of that. Let's look at this question. What happens if the bottom 2 quintiles grow by 10% each? So we have scarce resources, so all we can do is have the bottom 20% and the second 20% grow at 10%, but everybody else grows at 0. So if we were to we can calculate that, right? So that's 0.3 if you do everything in percent, plus 0.8% plus, of course, 0. Everything else is 0. And therefore, we would have that the growth rate of national income will be 1.1%. So that's how fast that would grow. So let me just write, just so we remember it, 1.1% for this one. Let me erase that and do the second example. So let's suppose we grew only the richest 20% grow. But they can, if we only target the richest 20%, we can actually get them to grow at 12%, because we're only growing half the number of people, 20% instead of 40% of population. So suppose this one grows at 12%. If I calculate that, you can see that 0.52 times 12, you can quickly calculate that, it's equal to 6.24%. So what we have here is that if you only target the richest 20%, your resources can actually lead to greater growth of total income than if we target the bottom 40%. All right, so let me write that over here so we can compare that later, and then let me erase everything else like this, and maybe even get rid of this equation here now. There. So now we have, we just want to see what happens to income inequality. But clearly we know what happens to the growth rate. If you focus on the top 20%, you can grow the economies at 6.24%. If you focus on the bottom 40%, the economy will only grow at 1.1%. But what happens to the share and the income inequality in each of these two cases? Well, the first thing we have to do is figure out a way to measure income inequality. There are many ways of doing that. I suggested the following measure. So let me just call IE. I'm going to take the top 20% and the share of income that goes to the top 20%, and divide it by the share of income that goes to the bottom 20%. And then we can see what happens. So before we have any growth, you can see what the answer is. The top 20%, they make 52%. And the bottom 20%, they made only 3%. So if I put these numbers in here, you will have 52 divided by 3, which happens to be 17.33. There you have it. So this 17.33, that's a measure of income inequality. Seems pretty high. That is, the top 20% earns 17 times more money than the bottom 20%. We might be a little bit concerned about this, but see, we'll try to figure out what happens when you have growth. Either growth by the bottom 20%, 40% actually, or growth by the top 20%. So the numbers would change if you do this. So I'm going to actually go ahead and give you what the numbers would be. So if there was growth in the top now in the bottom 40%, and each of those groups grow by 10%, what happens is that income will be for the individual number 1, his income is going to go from 1 to 1.1. That's a 10% increase. Individual 2 goes from an income of 2 to an income of 2.2, 3.3, 5.5. So these are the increases in income that we would see if we focus on the bottom 40%. If I were to add all these incomes up, you can see that all the other people, the top 60% here, their income stays the same. So the total increase in income would be, I can just add these up, and what happens is it turns out that the new total income is going to be 101.1. 101.1. All right. But the share of income is going to be quite different. The share is going to change because of the changes in income and everything. We have to recalculate the share. So I'm just going to clear some space here, and I'm going to do it. So what happened here is that the new share, so what we calculated this before, the bottom 20% is going to get 3.3 in total income, but now we have to divide it by the total income, which is 101.1, and therefore the share is slightly different from 3. It actually, when I make this calculation, is actually 3.26. And if we did the same for the next 20%, you can see that if we add it all up, it's going to be 8.8 divided by 101.1, and that would be equal to, some number that is a little bit greater than 8. I don't even need to calculate it. But I do want to calculate this last one here, because 52 is the income, but it's now out of 101.1, so the share that goes to the total, the richest 20% is actually a little bit lower, so it's going to turn out to be 51.43. And the important thing is that now that we calculate the income inequality measure here, after the growth of the bottom 40%, we're going to have 51.43 divided by 3.26, which is actually equal to 15.78. You can see what happened, right? So if we focus on the bottom 40%, national income is going to go up by 1.1%. That's good. And income inequality is going to improve. It's going to go from 17.33 to 15.78. So income will be more equally distributed now than it was before. All right, so let's just remember that. So again, this one goes 1.1, that goes with this number here. Suppose I went ahead and did the income inequality measure for when we have growth of national income when only the top quintile grows by 12%. If I do that, let me just erase these things first of all. It's going to be maybe a little difficult to do, but let's just recalculate it. So if I grow, if the richest 20% grows by 12%, their new incomes are going to be, first of all, to do this one, so this guy is going to be making 20.16, and the richest person who used to make $34 is now going to be making 38.08 instead. And if I take those increases and I add it to what total income used to be, and you can see that total income is no longer 101.1, it's going to be 106.24. Alright, so if I recalculate the share of income that goes to the top 20%, then you can see that they will be making, so 20.16 plus 38.08, that's equal to 58.24, and the share is out of 106.24. We can quickly calculate this, which is equal to 54.8. Alright, so they are now making a greater share of total income, which makes sense because they grew. But if you look at the bottom 20%, so if you go back and look at their income is still 3, but now those 3 is actually only equal to, so I'm looking at this one here, and their share is changing now from 3% to 2.8%. Alright, so now I'm going to finally calculate, so I'm going to take the share that goes to the top 20%, 54.8, going to divide by the share that goes to the poorest 20%, 2.8. I calculate that ratio, which is equal to 19.57. Alright, so now we can finally make a little bit conclusion here. So if we focus on the richest 20%, we put all our resources into the richest 20%, you can see that income is going to increase by 6.24%, which is better than if we focus on the bottom 40%, which is only gross income by 1.1. But this increase in growth of national income is not free, because the result is that it's associated with more income inequality. Obviously, the question then becomes, what's the right way to go? Should we focus on income and then have income grow quickly but suffer for an increase in income inequality? Or should we grow income a little bit slower but actually achieve a more equal income inequality? Well, I don't know what the answer to that question is. That depends on the government, or if there's inclusive institutions, then maybe there's a vote, or if there's democracy, people can choose which one of these two they prefer. But there is a trade-off that we see over here. So that's the choice we're going to have to make, and these are the things we're going to have to think about in this course. All right, that's all I want to do for right now. Thank you very much. Sorry for a long video.